in the heart of Italy, where the rolling hills of Umbria meet the skies above Assisi, something extraordinary was about to unfold. It was an evening like many others, calm, golden, touched by that quiet holiness that seems to linger wherever St. Francis once walked. Hundreds of pilgrims had gathered in a small hamlet called Petrignano di Assisi. They came from every corner of the world, some by bus, some by plane, some by faith alone, all drawn by a single name: Marija Pavlović, one of the 6 original visionaries of Medjugorje. As the sun dipped below the olive trees, the air filled with the murmur of the rosary. Candles flickered. The smell of incense drifted through the crowd. On a small wooden platform, Maria stood beside the altar, her face serene, her hands folded. Before her, gleaming softly in the candlelight, was the Blessed Sacrament, the Eucharist itself. She spoke gently, her voice steady and prayerful, inviting everyone to open their hearts. "Tonight," she said, "we will pray for peace in our families and peace in our souls." There was a stillness in the air, a silence deeper than words. Even those who had come out of curiosity began to feel it, a strange presence, a warmth that pressed softly against the heart. Among the crowd was a woman named Fiorella, an ordinary tourist from northern Italy. She wasn't a visionary, she wasn't a theologian, she was simply there, drawn by curiosity and love for the Virgin Mary. With her phone in hand, she decided to film the moment, wanting to keep a memory of what she called a night of prayer I'll never forget. None of the hundreds of people there could have known what her small act, pressing record on a phone, was about to reveal. Because that night, on the outskirts of Assisi, as hundreds prayed before the Eucharist, one camera would capture something no human eyes could see. And what it revealed would soon circle the world: a figure of light, a movement of adoration, and a question that still echoes to this day. Was the Virgin Mary truly there? Long before that night in Assisi, before the crowds, before the cameras, there was a small village nestled between the stony hills of Herzegovina, a place that would become one of the most visited spiritual sites in the modern world. Its name was Medjugorje. It was there, in 1981, that 6 children claimed to have seen a lady of unimaginable beauty standing on a hill. The lady spoke no threat, made no spectacle. Instead, she invited them, and through them, the world to prayer, fasting, and conversion of heart. Among those 6 was a young girl with dark hair and quiet eyes, Marija Pavlović. She was just 16. She came from an ordinary family, the daughter of a farmer and a homemaker, who never imagined that their child would one day speak of visions of the Mother of God. From that summer onward, Maria's life changed forever. While others pursued school and work, she found herself swept into a rhythm of daily prayer, fasting, and reflection. The apparitions continued, sometimes daily, sometimes less often, but always with the same core message: peace in the family, peace in the soul. Decades passed. Maria married, became a mother, and moved to Italy, yet her quiet devotion never faded. Even when the world's attention shifted, when skeptics questioned and critics mocked, Maria continued to live simply, leading prayer groups, hosting retreats, and repeating the same humble invitation: pray with the heart. And so, when she travels, thousands still come, not because they expect to see miracles, but because they sense something genuine, a living echo of Medjugorje's call. That's what brought the crowd together in Petrignano di Assisi. They came not for spectacle, but for stillness. They wanted to feel close to heaven, if only for an evening. As the rosary echoed through the night air, and the Eucharist gleamed beneath the soft glow of candles, Marija Pavlović stood, as she always had, humble, silent, focused not on herself, but on the presence before her. And in that quiet moment, somewhere between earth and eternity, heaven may have chosen to remind the world that Mary still stands beside her son. What happened next would turn a simple night of prayer into one of the most mysterious events. The night had fallen softly over Petrignano di Assisi. The last colors of the sunset were fading behind the hills, leaving only the shimmer of candles and a faint hum of whispered prayers. The open-air field beside the small church had been transformed into a sea of flickering lights, hundreds of pilgrims kneeling, their rosaries tangled between trembling fingers. Then the pilgrims went inside the small church to start the official prayer meeting. Marija Pavlović stood near the altar, her eyes lowered, her voice steady as she led the prayers. A large monstrance gleamed in front of her, holding the consecrated host, the Holy Eucharist. In that stillness, something subtle began to change. Some described it later as a deep peace, an almost electric silence, as if the air itself was waiting. Among the crowd stood Fiorella, a middle-aged woman from northern Italy. She had come to Assisi for a weekend of prayer and reflection. She wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. She had simply wanted to film a short clip of the evening to show her family back home. She raised her smartphone, pointed it toward the altar, and pressed record. On her small screen, the scene looked exactly as it did to the eye. The glow of candles, the visionary praying quietly, the crowd absorbed in devotion. Everything felt ordinary, peaceful, serene. Fiorella filmed for only a few minutes, then lowered her phone and joined the others in silence. She would later say she felt a strange warmth in the chest, a kind of wordless peace she couldn't explain. But nothing about the night, to her eyes, had seemed supernatural. The prayers ended, the crowd slowly dispersed, and Maria stepped down from the altar, smiling faintly as she greeted those who had come from far away. People embraced, took photos, and exchanged blessings. For most, it had been a beautiful evening, quiet, sacred, and unforgettable. But for one woman, the night was not over. Hours later, back in her small guest room on the outskirts of Assisi, Fiorella would unlock her phone to rewatch the clip she'd filmed. She wanted to relive the peace of that prayer, the glow of the candles, the sound of the choir. But as she pressed play, she would notice something she hadn't seen before. Something that would make her heart stop. A light, soft, bright, and shaped like a woman. She would replay it again and again, each time shaking her head in disbelief. Because on that video, the one she had taken with her own hands, it looked as if someone had been standing beside the visionary all along, someone no one had seen. Fiorella sat at the edge of her bed, her phone trembling slightly in her hands. The video played again, the same prayer meeting, the same moment of calm, yet now her eyes were fixed on something she couldn't unsee. Let's take a look at the original video. Now, before we analyze it, I have to say it's not confirmed by any church official, so it's all alleged. Now here is a short video of what the setting was in real life. You can see the visionary Maria standing near the altar. No shapes can be seen yet. To the right of Marija Pavlović, near the edge of the altar, there was a soft column of light, pale at first, almost like a reflection. But then it moved. It shimmered gently, its form growing clearer, almost human in outline. The glow seemed to flow like silk, rising and falling with a rhythm that matched the music in the background. And then, for a brief instant that sent chills down Fiorella's spine, the light bowed forward slowly, reverently toward the monstrance holding the Blessed Sacrament. Fiorella froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She rewound the clip, watching frame by frame, searching for an explanation. Was it a reflection? The light of a candle? A lens flare? But it didn't behave like light from any candle she'd ever seen. It didn't flicker. It didn't bend with the wind. It moved intentionally, with grace, the way a person would move in prayer. Her first thought was disbelief. Maybe her camera had glitched. Maybe someone had walked behind Marija. But when she compared the footage to what she remembered, she realized there had been no one there. She turned off the lights in her room and played the video again, this time in darkness. The glow on the screen seemed to pierce through the shadows, soft, white, and alive. Her fingers trembled as she paused the frame where the figure bowed. And though it was faint, her eyes filled with tears. "It's her," she whispered. The outline resembled every image of the Virgin Mary she had ever seen: the gentle tilt of the head, the curve of the veil, the unmistakable posture of humility. The next morning, unable to contain what she'd witnessed, Fiorella showed the video to others who had attended the event. One by one, they leaned closer to her phone and fell silent. A few gasped, some crossed themselves, others simply stared, unable to explain what they were seeing. Rumors began to spread quietly among the pilgrims. A figure of light, seen only on one phone, kneeling before the Eucharist beside Marija of Medjugorje. Soon, priests were shown the footage. Then journalists, then television producers. Within days, it would appear on Italian television, introduced with a single question: is this a sign from heaven or something else entirely? No one in the crowd that night had seen anything with their own eyes. And yet, on one phone, in one brief recording, a moment of divine adoration seemed to have been captured forever. A light that should not exist, yet somehow did. Within days, the video spread far beyond Petrignano. What had begun as a quiet night of prayer was now rippling across Italy and soon the entire Catholic world. Fiorella's phone became an object of fascination. Friends urged her to send the footage to priests. Priests urged her to send it to journalists. Eventually, an Italian television network invited her to share her story live on air. She appeared shy and humble, clutching the same phone that had filmed the mysterious light. "I did not expect this," she told the interviewer softly. "I just wanted to capture a moment of prayer, but when I watched it later, I saw something none of us had seen." The hosts replayed the clip again and again, pausing on the luminous figure that seemed to bend before the Eucharist. The studio fell silent. Even the skeptics, used to debunking all things supernatural, hesitated. Still, questions came quickly. Could it be a lens flare? A digital reflection? Was there a hidden light source? To settle the debate, Fiorella handed her phone to a group of technicians for analysis. They examined everything: the original file, the metadata, the camera's hardware, the exposure readings. Their conclusions stunned everyone. There was no sign of tampering, no trace of editing or artificial effects. The video had not been modified. What was recorded had truly been captured by the phone at that moment in time. And yet, when investigators compared it with the other cameras that had been filming the same event, none of them showed the figure. Only Fiorella's. That contradiction was impossible to explain. How could multiple cameras, pointed at the same altar, see nothing unusual, while a single phone recorded a light shaped like a woman bowing before the Eucharist? Some called it a miracle. Others called it a mystery of physics, a quirk of technology that science hadn't yet explained. But for those who saw it with faith, it was more than light, it was a visitation. Within weeks, the video was being shared in prayer groups across Europe. Titles appeared online: "The Virgin Mary bows before her Son." Others called it the miracle of Assisi. Fiorella, overwhelmed, withdrew from public view. She refused offers of money, fame, and interviews. "It wasn't about me," she said. "It was about what we were shown." Because whether it was a heavenly sign or a mystery of light, what her phone captured carried one unmistakable message: adoration. The video, barely a few minutes long, had become one of the most discussed clips in Catholic circles. People froze the frames, enhanced the light, studied the posture of the glowing figure. And in nearly every version, the same outline appeared: a slender shape, head inclined, veil flowing like liquid silver, bending low before the Holy Eucharist. Some saw coincidence. Others saw Mary herself, silently teaching the world the one thing she has always said since the beginning: adore my son. In Medjugorje, where Marija Pavlović was known as one of the original 6 visionaries, the news spread quickly. Many pilgrims saw it as confirmation that Mary's presence was still near, that even when her voice isn't heard, she continues to appear in subtle, quiet ways, pointing hearts back to Jesus. For the faithful, the image struck something deep. Here was the Mother of God, not demanding attention, not speaking, not glowing in glory, but bowing, kneeling before the Eucharist, before her own Son. It was a moment of profound humility. One theologian remarked, "If this is real, it's a message to us all. The Virgin doesn't come to be worshipped, she comes to worship." Now, what makes this story even more stunning is the story behind it. How could it be that the visionary of Medjugorje, the same woman who has seen the Virgin Mary for over 40 years, was standing exactly in that place, at that moment when it happened? Let me tell you her story so we can understand. In the quiet countryside of Herzegovina, surrounded by rocky hills and vineyards, lies a small village called Medjugorje. It is a place so ordinary, you could walk through it in minutes: narrow dirt paths, stone houses, and the soft hum of cicadas under the summer sun. But in June of 1981, something extraordinary happened there. And in the center of it stood a 16-year-old girl named Marija Pavlović. Marija was like any other teenager. She helped her parents around the house, played with her siblings, went to school, and dreamed of a simple life. She was quiet, kind, and deeply respectful, the sort of person who preferred silence to noise. Her family was Catholic, like most in the region, but no one could have imagined that their daughter would one day be known to millions around the world. It was the afternoon of June 25, 1981, when Marija, along with 5 other young people from the village, Vika, Ivanka, Mirjana, Ivan, and Jakov, saw something they could not explain. On a nearby hill called Podbado, they claimed to have seen a beautiful lady bathed in light, holding a child in her arms. She didn't speak at first. She simply looked at them with a love so strong that it brought them to tears. They ran home terrified, unsure of what they had seen. But something drew them back the next day, a piece they couldn't forget. And that was the beginning of one of the longest-running and most studied spiritual events of the modern age: the apparitions of the Virgin Mary in Medjugorje. For Marija, it was not a single moment. It became a lifelong calling. She continued to see the Virgin Mary not once or twice, but thousands of times over the years. The messages were always simple: peace, prayer, conversion, fasting, and faith. The girl from a small mountain village had become a messenger of peace for the world, yet she never acted like a celebrity or a saint. To her, she was still just Marija, a witness, not a star. From that first summer day in 1981, Marija Pavlović's life would never again belong only to herself. What began as a single vision on a quiet hillside soon turned into a daily encounter that changed her forever. Every evening, at nearly the same hour, Marija said she would see the Virgin Mary, the Queen of Peace, standing before her. There was no thunder, no flashes of light, only an overwhelming presence of love. The lady would speak gently, as a mother would to her children. Marija listened, sometimes in tears, always with deep reverence. The message was never complicated. The Virgin Mary spoke of 5 simple calls that have since become known around the world. To pray every day, to fast, to go to confession, to receive the Eucharist, and to read the Scriptures. 5 steps, repeated again and again, a path of peace in a world that keeps forgetting it. While others might have sought fame from such experiences, Marija remained humble. She never wanted attention, interviews, or money. She preferred silence and service. Those who met her in Medjugorje described her as calm, deeply kind, and somehow radiant, as if something invisible surrounded her. She often said that during each apparition, she didn't just see the Virgin, she felt her presence, an overwhelming peace that could not be explained in human words. And when the vision ended, that peace remained in her heart for hours. Over the years, millions of pilgrims traveled to Medjugorje. Some went out of curiosity, others in desperation, searching for healing, direction, or faith. Many came back changed. Marija became one of the most recognized voices among the 6 visionaries, because she was the one chosen to receive the message for the world, shared every 25th of each month. These monthly messages, translated into dozens of languages, began spreading across continents quietly, without any promotion, carried by word of mouth and faith. Each message reminded people that God is real, that prayer changes hearts, and that peace begins within. And through all of it, Marija remained the same, gentle, simple, and devoted. She would often tell pilgrims, "The gospel doesn't come to bring fear. She comes to remind us that we are loved." For her, it wasn't about miracles or signs, but about conversion, the transformation of the soul. To Marija, that was the greatest miracle of all. For most people, it's hard to imagine living between 2 worlds, one that we see and one that we can only believe in. But for Marija Pavlović, that became her reality. When the apparitions began, she was just a shy village girl. But as the years passed, she grew into a woman of deep faith and quiet strength. Her days were simple prayer, work, family, yet each carried an invisible depth. Because for Marija, heaven was never far away. In the early years of Medjugorje, the village changed overnight. What was once a forgotten place surrounded by vineyards and dust roads became a sea of pilgrims. Buses lined the fields, rosaries hung from every hand, and people prayed on the same hills where Marija and the others once stood trembling in fear. Authorities tried to silence them. The 6 young visionaries were questioned, monitored, and even forbidden to gather. But none of that stopped them. Every evening, no matter what happened, Marija and the others gathered in prayer. When asked what gave her courage, she would answer simply, "Because I know what I have seen." Over the years, Marija's life expanded beyond the hills of Medjugorje. She married, moved to Italy, and became a mother, yet the apparitions did not stop. She continued to receive the Virgin Mary's message on the 25th of each month, no matter where she was. Sometimes at home, sometimes during retreats, sometimes surrounded by thousands of pilgrims who knelt in silence as she prayed. Those who have seen her during an apparition describe a peace that fills the room. Her face softens, her eyes lift upward, and everything seems to pause. Even people who didn't believe often said the silence itself felt holy, as if something unseen brushed against the world for a brief moment. Despite decades of attention, Marija has always lived a modest and hidden life. She never asked for recognition or titles. Her home in Italy is simple, a place of prayer and welcome, where pilgrims often come seeking comfort. She greets them not as a celebrity, but as a friend. She cooks for them, listens to their stories, and always brings the conversation back to faith. Pray with your heart, she tells them, because prayer from the heart can change everything. Even now, after more than 40 years, Marija says her mission has never changed: to remind people that God has not forgotten us. and that the Blessed Mother still walks beside humanity. It's not an easy path to live with one foot on earth and one in heaven. But for Marija Pavlović, that balance has become her way of life, quiet, steady, and full of light. More than 40 years have passed since that summer on the rocky hillside, yet Marija Pavlović's mission has never faded. Month after month, she still receives and shares the message of the Virgin Mary, delivered on the 25th of every month for the whole world. It is a rhythm of faith that has continued unbroken since the early 1980s, a reminder that heaven still speaks, even when the world stops listening. Each message is simple, sometimes just a few sentences, but always full of tenderness. They are words of a mother speaking to her children, inviting, guiding, pleading softly. Pray with the heart. Do not lose hope. Be instruments of peace. There are no threats, no harsh warnings, only gentle calls to love. Yet behind that gentleness lies a deep urgency, a quiet cry for humanity to return to God before it forgets Him entirely. For millions, these words have become a light in dark times. People read them on websites, on small folded papers handed out in churches, or in newsletters mailed across continents. Every month, people still wait. And when the message comes, it spreads instantly across languages, time zones, and borders. Marija has always been careful never to place herself above others. She insists that the Virgin's words are for everyone, not just for her. When people ask what it's like to see the Virgin, she answers humbly, "It is not about me. It is about what God is doing through her love." In a world that constantly chases proof and spectacle, her quiet consistency has touched many hearts. She never argues, never debates, never defends herself. She simply continues praying, fasting, and living the message she has received thousands of times. For her, the true miracle is not in the visions, but in the change they bring to souls. The woman who once saw the Virgin on a hillside now helps others see God in their own lives. She often reminds pilgrims that signs and wonders are not the goal, they are only the doorway. The real encounter happens inside the heart, where belief is born in silence. Through war, suffering, and disbelief, Marija's message has never changed. It is always about peace, the same peace that has followed her since that first day in Medjugorje. And perhaps that is why people trust her, because she has remained faithful, not for years, but for decades, always gentle, always steady, always the same. Her words are not dramatic. They are motherly. And maybe that is exactly what the world needs, not a shout from heaven, but a whisper that still says, "Do not be afraid, I am with you." For all the attention that surrounds her name, Marija Pavlović has never lived like someone famous. She doesn't have a large house, or a secret address, or bodyguards. Her life remains simple, rooted in prayer, family, and quiet service. Those who visit her home are often surprised by its normalcy. A small kitchen, a wooden table, children's laughter in the background. On the walls, pictures of her family, a crucifix, and a small image of the Virgin Mary. Nothing extravagant, just the warmth of an ordinary Catholic home. Yet the atmosphere feels different. There's a peace that cannot be described, as if every corner of the house breathes prayer. Friends say that when you sit with Marija, you don't feel like you're speaking with someone chosen. You feel like you're speaking with a sister, someone who truly listens. Her voice is calm, her smile genuine, and her eyes full of a quiet strength that seems to come from another world. She often cooks for her guests, prepares coffee, and speaks about everyday things. But sooner or later, every conversation leads back to faith. God is not far, she says. He is as near as the love in your heart. Marija's humility has always been what sets her apart. She has seen what few others claim to have seen, yet she never calls herself special. She insists she is unworthy, that she is only a messenger. Her life, she says, is not about visions, it's about living the message she has been given. Over the years, she has traveled to many countries, not as a celebrity, but as a servant of peace. Wherever she goes, she gathers people to pray the rosary. There are no lights, no stages, no advertisements, just people kneeling together in silence. Sometimes, after these gatherings, people describe feeling a strange calm, as if the air itself had changed. They often say, "It's not her words, it's her presence." And maybe that's what humility really is, not thinking less of yourself, but allowing God to shine through you without needing the world to notice. Even when she stands before thousands, Marija never draws attention to herself. She lowers her eyes, joins her hands, and lets the moment belong entirely to prayer. It's this quiet authenticity that has made her one of the most respected spiritual figures of our time. Someone who has walked through decades of faith, controversy, and wonder, yet remained unchanged. She once said, "If people could feel the peace I feel when I see her, they would never want to live without it." That peace, born in the hills of Medjugorje, still follows her wherever she goes, not because of who she is, but because of the love she carries within her. After so many years, Marija Pavlović no longer needs to speak much for people to understand her mission. It's written in the way she lives: simple, prayerful, always peaceful. She has seen visions of light, heard messages from heaven, and stood before crowds of thousands, yet her words never change. She speaks of the same truth that began in Medjugorje, that heaven is near, that love can heal, and that peace begins inside the human heart. Her life has become a message in itself, quiet proof that faith can endure without fame, without power, and without fear. She never argues with the world. She simply lives her faith, and through that, the world listens. So when, years later, that mysterious light appeared beside her during a moment of prayer, it felt deeply symbolic, because it didn't happen next to someone seeking attention. It happened beside a woman who has spent her life reflecting the light of heaven through silence, humility, and peace. Maybe that's why people still talk about it. Not because of the light itself, but because of who stood beside it. When the mysterious light appeared in that small church near Assisi, most people saw it as something strange, a beautiful mystery caught on camera. But for those who knew who stood beside that light, it carried a far deeper meaning. Because the woman at the altar that night was Marija Pavlović, the same girl who had once looked toward the sky in Medjugorje and seen the Virgin Mary for the first time. She was no stranger to light. For her, heaven had never been a theory. It was a living presence she had experienced again and again throughout her life. That's what made it so powerful. The light didn't appear beside a famous figure or someone seeking proof. It appeared beside a woman who had spent her entire life quietly pointing hearts toward heaven, asking nothing for herself. For more than 4 decades, Marija has carried the same message: pray, love, forgive, believe. And maybe in that small church, the light was a silent echo of that same message, a reminder that God still speaks, that faith still matters, and that even in a digital age, grace can still touch the world. To some, it was just a trick of reflection. To others, it was something more, a sign that the same light that once appeared on the hills of Medjugorje had not faded. It had simply followed her, because that's what happens with souls who truly live for God. Wherever they go, light follows. And so, the mystery of that video isn't really about technology or proof or debate. It's about the woman at its center, a woman who has spent her life standing in the light of heaven and reflecting it quietly into a world that needs hope. perhaps that's why, even years later, people still watch that short clip and feel something they can't explain. A stillness, a peace, a presence. Because maybe the light beside her wasn't there to be analyzed, it was there to be felt. A small, wordless confirmation that the message of Medjugorje still continues through her voice, her faith, and her unshakable peace. And when all the debates are forgotten, one truth will remain. The woman beside the light has always carried it within her.